Say AI is the great equalizer, shifting the economic starting line to shape a more equitable future. And that will allow us to drive lasting impact. And so for me, when I think of driving lasting impact, I think of my daughters. I think of my grandmother. I think of all the sacrifices that my ancestors made for me to be in the space that I'm in now. And I don't want my kids to have to continuously make the same sacrifices. And so, even with my children who are 13 and 16, we use AI every day when they're doing their homework. They've also started their own businesses. And so I just feel like it's such a tool that can, provide us with so much freedom, but then at the same time also help us to correct historically challenging and systematic challenges that we've have been facing as a community and as a culture. Um, I'm also a PhD research student, and one of my recent research papers was on the difference between women-led businesses and male-driven businesses. And so, in one of the reports, I have the link here. This is a Wells Fargo report. It basically showed that if women entrepreneurs generated on average the same as male entrepreneurs, we would see a almost $8 trillion boost to the economy. And so if you could just think of having a blank check or having a check of $8 trillion, there's so many different things that we could do with that to, make our communities better, to make the world a better place. In that same report, it did show just if we look here to the left side, as it stands now, there are 14 million women-owned businesses. We employ 12.2 million employees, and we're only generating, and I'm not going to say only, $2.7 trillion. It's not a little chunk of change. It is a lot, but if we look at the disconnect between that nearly 3 trillion and the 8 trillion that we could be investing in our economy, that's where I do see AI being able to help us leap over those systematic challenges that women in particular have been facing, whether that's access to capital, whether that's access to networks. There's a plethora of different challenges that I feel artificial intelligence will be able to help us leverage moving forward. And so when we do think about the economy growing, these are some of the additional statistics that stood out to me. If we think about from a global perspective, in my business, I align it with the UN Sustainable Goals. And so one of the things that I am working to help achieve is eliminating this inequality between men and women, and also alleviating poverty. So with additional funds in our economy, with it being healthier, we could do something amazing like ending poverty. We could create gender equality. And as I mentioned earlier, with my daughters, when I see this number of, almost 2.5 more additional hours of unpaid work my children will have to do, it's mind-boggling to me because I already feel like my day is too short. And so when I think about, how can we leverage innovation? How can we leverage technology to move the narrative forward and make futures better for other people? I'm, all in for that. So moving forward, I'll just speak a little bit about my history. As a child growing up, I was known as a disruptor, and it was never a positive term. I was the kid that was always getting in trouble. As my sisters would be playing with their Barbie dolls, I would be taking apart the VCR and taking apart the toaster. I just had a passion to understand how things worked. And so I would take things apart. My mother would be very annoyed, but I just had this appetite to learn and this appetite to understand things. And so I think maybe I was one of the first kids to be called a disruptor. I don't know, maybe someone in the chat can also say if they had that challenge growing up. But so when I think of AI as a disruptor, I don't look at it as a negative thing. I feel like um, a lot of positivity comes from disruption, because disruption just means challenging the status quo. I've had a vast majority of different experiences that have led me to the business that I'm doing now. And I basically help women entrepreneurs leverage AI to grow their businesses. And so when I tie it back to the lens of being a disruptor and why I love AI and why my heart aches when people are like, no, I'm afraid of it, it's going to take over. I'm like, we don't have the time to waste to have the back and forth of should I be using it, should I not be using it? I believe everyone needs to incorporate it especially for those communities that have been historically challenged. But now these two images on the slide are a really great representation for me of why AI is so powerful. And so the image on the left, this slide was created, I think it was maybe 3 weeks ago at this point. And so when I was looking for young child scientist, all of the images looked like this young boy here, every single one of them. There was no image that looked like me, not even until 2024. There was no image of a young Black girl scientist. And so even to have that as a statement today and be able to connect that back to my corporate America experience, connect that back to my college experience, and still not be represented in a science or engineering space, it's sad to me. But now, if you look at this image on the right, I created this image in Canva with 3 prompts: young Black girl scientist. And so, if I could leave you with any message, I really believe that AI has the power to help us take an idea to execution without the systematic barriers, without having to have a lot of money or having a rich uncle or having all of these different things that we historically or systematically don't have access to. And we also don't have to wait for it to be handed to us. We can now leverage the tools and create the kind of futures that we want to experience. So understanding AI, the challenge that I have is in some situations, I feel like the narrative is too technical. And for me, I want everyone to understand, if you're using Amazon, if you have any experience with Siri or Alexa, you are already using AI. So it's not to say that I need an engineering degree or I need an IT background to understand it. You're already using it. And in some way, shape, or form, you can leverage that to, use it even more powerfully in what you're doing. In a general sense, artificial intelligence refers to the development of computer systems that perform tasks that previously only humans could do. So that's learning, solving problems, making decisions, and then this idea of perception. That's what AI is. And so you can go deeper into it in terms of, maybe getting some certifications, but you don't necessarily have to go deeper into the understanding of how it works, how does it integrate, in order to be able to really utilize it. Next, and people ask me, how do I engage with it? How do I, communicate with the tools? And one of the things that I've seen, especially with my audience of clients, again, it goes back to that level of it being very technical. And I do feel that women are the best at using artificial intelligence because I feel we're just better communicators. I don't want to offend any males on the call, but I do feel like we're very clear communicators. And so the better you can communicate, the better you can engage with artificial intelligence. And it's really just being very specific about what is the outcome that you want to achieve, and using the context and using clarity in order to navigate, in order to articulate that task. It's really just about tasking. And so, when people start prompting, they start, engaging with the tools, maybe they don't get the output that they want. And it's just really an iterative process that you just continue, you get a response. And then if it's not exactly what you want, you just continue to keep prompting, which is just giving clear instructions on what it is that you want to achieve out of it. So as we talk about entrepreneurship, which is how I love to really integrate the work that I'm doing with AI, this past April, I read a report from Mark Cuban, and I believe he paid over $400 million in taxes. So April 15th, he sent a check to the government of $400 million. And so I feel like he's a great resource in terms of guiding people on entrepreneurship and businesses. And so his quote is, there are only two types of companies in this world: those that are great at AI and everyone else. So if you don't know AI, if you're not using AI, you're going to fail. We have to be the ones that are navigating and utilizing these tools. One, because we want to be present in the tools. And the more that we engage with them, the more that they'll be authentic to our experiences. So sometimes it's a bit overwhelming. So I have a quick 3-step process when you're getting started with AI. I encourage people to start small. I don't think you need to be well versed in every single tool. Pick one or two tools and set some time aside, maybe 30 minutes a day, and just start playing with it. Start experiencing what it is to leverage AI. People also ask me, which one should I pay for? Which one should I not pay for? I start all of the tools that I use with free trials. And so I will continue with a free trial until I feel I need to actually upgrade to, a higher version. So even presently, I think I'm only paying for one or two tools. Perplexity is one of those. So I don't pay for a lot of the tools until I need to now use that upgraded service. And I feel like there's so many that are out there. If you start paying for and buying every single one, it's going to be an overwhelm on your budget as well. So use the free trials, start very small. And then also I like to encourage people to begin with a win. So if you're an entrepreneur, you're a small business owner, what is something that you're already great at? Maybe that's creating content, or maybe that's, coming up with this sales script. So start with something that you can articulate very well, which will make the prompting a lot easier. Um, don't go with the hardest thing. So if you're struggling to figure out how do I generate more leads, if that's something that's hard for you, don't start there. Start with something that's a bit easier and something that's more inclined to your nature, and that'll make the beginning steps a lot easier. Um, and then what insights are you looking for? And what are the best next steps for you in your particular situation? That's how I would advise people to get started. In terms of use cases, there's an unlimited list of use cases, but if you're just getting started, think in terms of productivity, time management, ideation. For a lot of my clients, they're sometimes stuck in ideation or like, okay, I have this one idea, I don't know how to articulate it. The tools are really great for that because it can give you 20 different iterations of your idea, and then you can say, okay, these are the ones that I'm more drawn to versus these that are not as interesting to me. So it kind of like narrows down that brainstorming process. Decision making, there are so many prompts that can help you if you're a business owner. Is this of all of these ideas that I have, which ones are the most profit? Which ones will give me the most profit? Which one to be the most difficult to implement? So using that also as like a business coach, if you will. I think some of the more common ones are customer engagement. We've seen a lot of customer service bots that people are now using. Marketing has also been, very prevalent in terms of creating content, whether that's LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever platform you're using. Um, I'm sorry, something popped up there. Operations, optimizing, personal development. There's just the list goes on and on. So again, just start with something that is comfortable for you. Even if it's as simple as taking a picture of what's in your refrigerator and saying, hey, what are 5 meals that I can create from the picture that I've generated? That's also a good start. Okay, so just leaning back into the small business owners and entrepreneurs. Lead generation for me has been very helpful. So articulating who my audience is and coming up with different lead magnets and different ways to communicate with that client. That's something that has been very useful. Productivity. As I mentioned, I am a working mom of two very active children. So every Sunday, I actually engage with different tools to come up with what is the ideal schedule for the week. And so then I print it out, put it on the refrigerator. Everyone knows what's expected every week. That has been amazing. And then also in terms of growing your business, automating your operations, leveraging AI can also be very helpful in that perspective. Just leaning back into another quote, knowledge is not power, implementation is power. I do feel for some small business owners and maybe entrepreneurs or people who are trying to make that leap, it can feel very overwhelming. You're like, okay, there's all of these things that I can do. Where do I start? And having all that information in your mind without actually taking action is not going to really help you leverage the tools. It's just going to create more burnout. So even with the presentation that I'm having now, there's something that you can take away from this and really start becoming very actionable about utilizing the variety of different tools that are available. But I'll just go quickly through some 101 in terms of implementation. So in terms of lead generation for small business owners, and how do you know if you have an issue with lead generation? If you day by day, month by month, don't have an idea of how many customers are coming into your business, or if you're getting people to your website and they're not converting to customers, this could be an indication that you're having a challenge with lead generation. So what I would say how you could use artificial intelligence for this is getting the tool that you're working with. Currently, as I mentioned, I love to use Perplexity. How I would start it is really doing some audience research, segmenting my customer group, and then really getting clear on the persona of my buyer. I would then create lead magnets and offers based on what their pain points are. I would then develop a very structured outreach campaign through email marketing, through social media, and then I would optimize my assets through using the AI analytics. For example, when I post something on LinkedIn, I always go back to the analytics. I find out which ones were the top performing posts. And so I use that as data instead of now coming up with a new idea every time. I use that data to now optimize my social media moving forward. And so that lends into, that fifth step, which is just really assess what's working and then repeat what's working and delete what's not working. In terms of productivity, you can use virtual assistants to automate your routines. You can for your time-consuming tasks. Those are a lot of things that can be delegated to AI. Optimizing your task in terms of prioritization and how do you allot for your time. In order to do that, again, it's just a step-by-step process. You want to start with selecting the tool that works for you. I was using Claude and ChatGPT before. Now, as I mentioned, I'm using more Perplexity, which I feel gives me a better output in terms of sourcing, in terms of engagement. So pick the tool that works best for you. Analyze the task and the priority against your goals and your milestones, and then just review the recommendations. All of the information that is generated may not be specific and accurate for you, but then you just have to now pick and choose what is actually moving you in the direction that your goals are leading you towards. Um, Lastly, for implementation, as an example, automating operations. This I feel is going to be the next step for a lot of business owners and a lot of entrepreneurs who are stuck doing things manually. And I think as an experiment, if you are doing manual tasks, for instance, let's say you have a financial services business and you engage with your clients one-on-one and you maybe take some notes. The time lag between your notes getting into your CRM system and now sending them an invoice or sending them an update, that lag of time is going to work against you because your competitor is using AI to now make that a very seamless and very quick and easy process for your customer. And at the end of the day, your customer wants speed. They want things to be automated. So for small business owners and entrepreneurs to really leverage AI, I would really advise you to start automating a lot of your processes. And really, that just comes down to mapping out what is your business process from someone learning about you to becoming your client. What does that process look like? And so throughout that process, you then identify, okay, what are the areas that I can prioritize to automate? You can't necessarily do everything at once, but what are the key steps that could help you make that process easier? Then again, selecting the right tools, because we all have different businesses, we all operate different ways. A right is relative at this point because there's so many tools, there's so many options. You have to pick what works best for you. Then, connecting the tools to the data, you want to then define the triggers that now create the actions. And then you want to continuously test and continuously assess what's working. I like to also say, as a business owner, AI allows you to focus on your 20% while automating the remaining 80%. So we go back to that 80-20 rule. A lot of my clients, they want to be the chief everything officer. And so they're putting 100% effort into every single part of their business instead of really honing in on what is my skill set? What is it that I'm trying to achieve? What am I uniquely gifted to do? I do believe that we all have a unique gift. We have a unique service. There's something that I'm passionate about that someone else probably could care less about. And so now that gives me the endurance to be successful in what I'm doing. And so the more we can articulate what your 20% is or what your focus should be, then it'll be easier to identify what the remaining 80% is. But for the entrepreneurs and the small business owners who continuously want to, do everything, you're very scared to delegate, you're afraid to even ask for help. In the age of AI, that's going to really put you behind. And so do the work of figuring out what is it that you specifically can do very well, which AI will not be able to replicate. That's another challenge that comes up in a lot of conversations that I have. And people are like, oh, am I going to be replaced by AI? Am I going to be replaced? Is my job going to be replaced? If you're doing mundane tasks that could even be outsourced to uh, the Philippines, India, if those are the tasks that you're focused on, yes, you will be replaced. But if you're focused on the one gift or the unique talents that you have, that is not something that you'll be replaced by. So I do want to inspire people to really hone in on what it is that they do well and focus on that. Um, AI, artificial intelligence, is a ever-changing landscape. And once you feel like you've got it down pat, there's something else that's going to come up. There are new additions to tools that happen all the time. There are a variety of different tools that are coming out. And so how I like to think of it is just thinking, becoming an experimenter, becoming a scientist, and just really being aware of what's happening in the space, but not necessarily feeling tied to any particular um, tool or any particular algorithm or whatever, anything that's current, because the landscape will be changing. The things that will remain constant is that we need to be authentic as we're using it. Remain true to who you are, your core values, and your vision, because that will be apparent. That will come out in if you're using, let's say, Perplexity to create your LinkedIn posts, and it doesn't reflect who you are. At some point, that will come out. So continue to be authentic. Continue to be responsible. Prioritizing ethical and responsible use cases for AI. Also, I would say proactively address potential bias that we find in the tools. And I know there's some speakers that will be talking more about the biases later in the week. And I also would like to challenge people to hold yourself accountable for the impact that you're leveraging AI and what those solutions will have on our society, not just for us right now, thinking about our children, thinking about our grandchildren. One of the things I also like seeing now is a lot more transparency. And so if that's in, the way that people are developing their tools, when I see someone posting something and they're like, my co-pilot was AI, I like to see those different things because it's welcoming, and it's also showing people that, hey, no one's doing this on their own. We are leveraging tools. And so I think everyone should have access to that. So, being open about how you're utilizing AI, clearly communicating, and then just embracing this idea of transparency. Also, as I've been transparent about how I use AI, it's also helped other people to say, oh, okay, I could use it in that way. I could use it in this space. So I think transparency just lends itself to a greater community having greater access. And then ownership, taking ownership of your plans, your implementation, and also the outcomes. Continuously upskilling to develop your asset of, utilizing and being able to use AI, and then empowering yourself to make very informed decisions around the adoption for yourself personally, and then also for your business. This is just a little snippet of the tools that I'm currently using, and this constantly changes. But I always get asked like, okay, what are you using? What are you using? So I mentioned Perplexity a few times. For my PhD work, I have been using Claude, which I have really enjoyed. U is another one that I use every so often for task managing. I like Miro, Motion AI. Task Aid is a new one that I just became aware of. And then for the last list, I also want to remind people that pretty much every business now, maybe all, I haven't researched it, so I don't know all, but the majority of tools that you have already been using are also adopting AI. And so whether, for instance, Zoom has an AI companion. Canva has a lot of AI features. So don't also just overlook what you're already paying for and what you're already using. They may have some capacity that you can easily tap into versus researching a new tool to do something that your tool can already do. But I would just like to have a call to action for people to embrace AI as a tool for growth, experiment with the technology, get hands on with it. I think it's hard to really understand if you're not engaging with it. And the smaller the tasks are that you get a win from, the more you'll find use for using those tools. And then also engaging with communities like, the community that we're here now. There's a lot of them that are coming up. And then I wanted to go back to, I think I had yeah. So these four images here, again, I created very easily in Canva. And, having a background in design, having a background in engineering, this would have taken, I don't know, maybe months if I decided, oh, let me illustrate, a portrait. And so just the power to have an idea of a woman embraced in gold with a artificial intelligence background to now have that become something tangible. That's what I would love for people to take away. It doesn't have to be this very far-fetched idea or this far-fetched execution strategy. It's something that can happen very quickly. Things that used to take months will now only take minutes. Something that used to take years can maybe take weeks.